We're live.
We're live, we're live, we're live.
Hello and welcome to the This Is Not Therapy Hour. I am Brandon Tessers.
And I am Caitlin Miller, and we are live.
And we are both licensed therapists, but this is not therapy.
Not therapy for many reasons. Very many.
Yes. This is instead just an open conversation. Caitlin and I are here talking with one another and talking with you all. We're doing our best to make our guesses about who you are, what you're interested in, how we're coming across to you, how we're impacting you. For those of you who are willing and able to participate in the chat, we appreciate that because it gives us more information on which to base those guesses about who you are and what you're interested in and how we're coming across and impacting you.
Yes. Please comment, even if it's not the topic we're talking about. Ask us any questions.
Yeah. Don't hold back. Make jokes, whatever. Jump in. Just conversation. We work with a private therapy practice called Effective Artistry. Our office is located in Northbrook, Illinois. We do individual, couples, family, and group therapy with people in the states of Illinois and Wisconsin. We also work with a few coaches, a few executive functioning coaches who can work with people all over the world via the internet, as well as some parenting coaching. I think that's it. Is that it? Oh, we'll do our best to read out the comments as they come in so everybody's on the same page.
I guess we could say if people are interested in working with us, they can contact admin@effectiveartistry.com. But yeah. And Brandon will read out all the comments, minus the ones that are maybe spam. We'll see.
Yeah. Cool. Well, as you can all see, I am in a different location than usual. I'm with my family. We are in Wisconsin at a lake house. And I am currently...
Birch trees are so beautiful. Oh my gosh. Oh, I love a good birch tree. Oh, you're floor sitting. Do you feel even more grounded than you normally do, Brandon Tessers?
No. I just...
In fact, I feel exactly the same.
The internet, the place where I usually have worked when I've been here, the internet wasn't doing well with the video calling, so I'm sitting in a different spot and had to kind of like move last minute. That's why we started a couple minutes late too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm glad to be here. How are you doing, Caitlin?
The first half of my weekend was rough. The second half was great, so I liked that the ending was better. And riding off of the very good Sunday. Very, very good Sunday. So.
All right. Bad Saturday, good Sunday.
Yeah. Yep. We like a redeeming Sunday.
Okay. We like things that we like. Yeah.
Yeah. We like things that we like.
What's on your mind?
I want a refresher about what your creative process is and how it works. And then eventually I want to learn it enough to teach it with you. But I want to hear more.
Sure. So we'll talk about creativity. And like we said at the top, if you all are interested in something else or have questions or whatever, don't hold back.
Yeah, you could literally comment if we're talking about creativity. Hey, I have this question about like parenting an 11-year-old autistic child. Like, I would like some help. It's totally fine. You can totally change the subject. I was just thinking of like a river. And then I was thinking of the blood vessels, and there's like a river, and we can go on a side stream quest anywhere, but... Sure.
I mean, very different from blood vessels because, those eventually are circuitous and you come back the same way, except for the capillaries, I suppose.
The capillaries don't come back the same way? Tell me more. Wait, no, creativity, bro. Creativity.
I'm sure I am wrong about this. We have a hi there from Bast Insider in the comments.
Yay! Hi, Bast Insider! Woohoo!
So, all right. I like to start conversations by talking over, like, if we're going to be using a word a lot, I like to define what we mean by it.
What is creativity?
Because otherwise people end up like having whole different conversations without anybody realizing.
Oh, yeah. I've been like halfway through a staff conversation at Effective Artistry when I've realized that was happening, and I was like, oh, we could have just started with a definition.
So here's the thing: is creativity. Creativity is about innovation, coming up with new ideas. And if we want to be really technical, uh, effectively, what we're talking about is like creating chains and then shortening those chains. So like if I consider A
Woo!
and then connect it to B and then connect that to C and to D and so on until I arrive at L, and then I encode all that and create a link directly between A to L, then that's what we're talking about with creativity, right? Like I have to have been able to make some connections to get to an idea or um, a concept or whatever in the first place, and then we create a direct link and encode that so that we can go straight from one to the next, right? I know that sounds like
We're A to Elling.
super, I don't know, technical and not very interesting, but
I think it sounds interesting. I don't know what the average person would respond, but
I think it's important to note that like creativity isn't like artists making art is different than being creative. Even though making art involves creativity, creativity is not domain specific. No matter what it is that you're doing, even making yourself lunch, you're coming up with new ideas sometimes, right? Like sometimes you're just making the same thing, but sometimes
you're just having a peanut butter sandwich on white bread.
Right.
With a banana.
So creativity is not about the domain, it's just about coming up with new ideas. It's also important to note, especially because we're going to switch into talking about art, that when we're talking about creativity, it has nothing to do with whether or not somebody else has come up with those ideas. The process of creativity is about you have come up with an idea that was not given to you.
You have come up with an idea that was not given to you, even if someone else has already come up with it.
Right. That
so like you were given A and B and you got, could you give an example of what that looks like with the A and L thing?
Okay, well, I'll use the example of making lunch. So let's say that I'm hungry and I'm looking around and I see that I've got some bread and I've got some tuna and I've got some, I don't know, mayo and other stuff. And I can be like, okay, you know what? Based on what I know about mayo and what I know about tuna, whatever, what if I mix this together, throw in some like, you know, diced pickles or some crunch, whatever, and spread that on bread and make a sandwich. The fact that that's a tuna sandwich or a tuna salad sandwich and that like many other people have made that many times doesn't mean that I didn't still go through the process of being creative there. I came up with that new idea. So I'm taking all this information that I have, combining it in the way that in a way that gives me an idea that I want to execute on.
And in this example, you were not consciously already aware of tuna salad, right? It's like
this metaphor.
Okay, in this metaphor. Yeah, okay, sounds good. That's very helpful. Thank you, sir. Keep going.
So when people are talking about the creative process, usually what they're talking about is what I would call an artistic process.
Okay. Yeah.
When people say creative, they are often talking about artistic.
Yeah.
But not always. Sometimes we're talking about creativity in other domains too. But very rarely when someone's talking about a creative process, do they mean something other than an artistic process? Sometimes, but rarely.
Yep.
And then art.
So do you call yours the artistic process, or what is the name of yours?
Well, we'll talk about we'll get specific on what you're interested in.
Okay, sounds good. And art.
So art we have to define.
How would you define art, Brandon Tessers?
Okay, so for me, this is how I find it useful to think of what art is. Art is communication between an artist and an unspecified theoretical recipient.
Art is the communication between an artist and an unspecified theoretical recipient.
Right, usually because the way I define communication is anything that a person does with the intent to impact the way another person is thinking or feeling or acting, other person or other people. So quite often that's synchronous, right? I'm communicating with somebody, talking to them, I'm trying to have an impact. Sometimes it's not, it's asynchronous. I'm writing a letter to somebody, but I know who I'm writing to and I'm writing something specifically to them. Right? art is communication, but it's intended for a non-specific recipient. So as opposed to like I'm trying to talk to Caitlin or send a message to Caitlin, it's more I'm just sending this out there to impact the way that whoever views it will think or feel or behave.
So could an example be like, I felt really lonely after this is a hypothetical. I guess actually what I'm going to say is probably true. I felt really lonely after my last breakup. I want to write a song about that post-breakup loneliness. It will go to theoretically strangers, but the intended impact is I want people to judge themselves less or feel less alone in their post-breakup loneliness.
I'm sorry, I missed part of that because there was a comment I was reading. You're saying if I am sad after a breakup.
Do you want to just read the comment?
Is a joke. You mean my DMing isn't art because it's to a specified audience? Honestly, rude. So I know that's a joke, but actually I would consider DMing art. I would consider it a specific subset of art that's performance art.
What's the? Oh.
So performance art.
That was such a Wisconsin. Oh, I've lived here for too long already. Oh no.
Performance art is art that you perform, meaning like there, as opposed to like a poem that you've written or a painting that you've made that where the artifact, the thing which exists, we can call it the piece of art or the artifact, doesn't require your presence and just persists in whatever form it is in, right? Performance art, the artist has to be there performing it for it to be performance art. And obviously we could talk about like, you take a videotape or a audio recording of a performance and whatever, but we don't need to get into the...
Well, isn't technically Baston's messages to a infinite audience? Because there could be people looking at their comments, well, like, right? Or did they say DMing specifically, and that implies one-to-one?
Hold on, they say, I do perform a lot when I'm DMing. Mostly I perform as someone who's prepared to DM. DMing is done for a group, typically. I mean, there are two-person...
Oh, I thought you were saying direct messaging. Okay, no, Dungeon Master. All right, there we go. Okay, I am following it all now. Yes, that is performance art. I agree.
So performance art, at the time of the performance, you're aware, at least to some extent, of the audience. And dungeon mastering, they say.
Brandon got it right away. Don't worry.
Maybe it's helpful or even important to point out that like it doesn't really matter whether or not something is art. Not that much. Although I guess sending someone private messages could be an art. Okay, well, an art, that's true, but that's another different use of the word.
Yeah. People
are very focused on whether something is art or not. I think in large part because people don't define what art means to them. And so instead we assign some quality, a certain kind of ineffable, like imperceptible, but you just, je ne sais quoi. You don't know what it is, but you know it's there. Famously, that's like, that's been in official, including legal definitions of what art is. It's like, I know it when I see it. But generally we think that something being art makes it better than not being art, right? If you're just doodling, that's not art. But if you're drawing art, that's more meaningful in some way. So I think there's utility in that, but I also think that because of that, people end up really focusing on like, does something count as someone's art or not? A lot of that has to do with our culture's views on productivity. And if something is art, then it counts as being productive for the most part. So these are definitions that I'm using because it makes it easier to conceptualize and communicate about these things so we can move forward and like have meaningful conversations and explore things and come to conclusions. It's not necessarily important to like evaluate all edge cases and categorize everything down to like, does this count or does this not count? So I'm sharing what I think, but again, that's just based on utility, right? But yes, I would call DMing performance art. In fact, I also consider therapy to be performance art. Anyway.
Is it that the therapist is doing the performance art and the client is, or just the therapist?
The therapist is doing the performance.
That's what I figured.
The client is the audience. Audience doesn't mean passive, even though I know that people often think of it that way because of the social contract in our culture. I also think, I don't know how much this is going to matter for this conversation, but to me, there's, I think the conversation of what is art and what is craft can be really interesting. Both are very valuable in their own way, but they kind of serve different purposes, I think. I agree, although again, as with all words, like they're just tools and there isn't actually some like inherent quality that makes something art versus craft. It's about how we define like what's a useful way to use those terms or to conceptualize those things. So I agree with you that they're valuable in their own way and they serve different purposes, because I think that's the most useful way to use these concepts, is to apply them to different, there can be overlap, but different things. Otherwise, we're just using two different words to talk about the same thing in some kind of confusing way. There's some other stuff I want to say, but we can talk about that when we get to the process part. Essentially, art is something you are doing to create the opportunity for an audience to experience the art. The point is that they interact with and experience the art, and then they get something out of that. What you're trying to get them out of it, or what you're trying to have them get out of it, whether or not they do or don't, or get something different. I mean, that's all kinds of stuff. This next thing is super confusing, but good to put out in this conversation, is that art in our language is also a word that is used to mean skill. So like artistry in our name, effective artistry. Artistry is a word that is more or less synonymous with skill, although it has connotations of like skill that is acquired through practice and work, as opposed to someone can have natural skill. We wouldn't typically use the word artistry to talk about someone who's just starting something, no matter how skilled they are. It conveys a sense of mastery, not just ability. That's why saying like, you know, sending private messages can be an art is true, but that art, what we're talking about there is that a person can master it or become very skillful at it. This is a quote, there is an art to getting in someone's DMs, which like, yeah, there is.
Yep.
I assume. I've actually never slid into anyone's DMs. I've never
done that either. Yeah. But I would assume as well.
I did message people on Facebook back in the day, but we were just using that as like...
Back in 1984. I'm just kidding. Neither of us are that old.
85, so...
Back at -1 years old, before Facebook existed.
Yeah, I've never initially contacted somebody via social media. I've only used it to directly communicate with people I already know. But it certainly seems like there's an art to it.
Oh wait, I have done that then. I was just thinking about for the purpose of like finding a partner. But yeah, I technically have done that.
Sliding into your DMs certainly has a connotation of like pursuing romantic or sexual interest or whatever. But I don't think that it's exclusively used for that.
Yeah, Instagram has been very helpful as a platform to connect with new people that I couldn't meet in person.
There's a comment there saying hi and then pointing to it saying me sliding into your DMs.
There you go. It worked.
I think it's the use of the word sliding, by the way. I think that's the one that implies that it's like for romantic purposes, you know?
Yeah.
But it's also just like kind of a funny way to describe it. And so it spreads for that reason.
Yeah, it is funny.
Now, last thing we need to point out is that how people usually, maybe not usually, but how people often use art, what they're talking about is certain art forms. So like painting, you know, singing or playing music in some way, dancing, illustrating, drawing, writing, poetry, right? These are all like certain forms of art. And an art form is just a particular set of parameters around how to do art, right? It doesn't have to be that way. New art forms are developed all the time. You know, like you would be hard pressed finding anybody at this point who would not consider film to be an art form. Obviously, that wasn't an art form 200 years ago before the technology for film existed.
Mhm.
So it's not like some like handed down from on high, like prescribed set of these are the types of art.
Yeah.
Although people do love to try and categorize this stuff, including you go back and look at like, the muses in ancient Greece, where there's 7 of them, each assigned to different forms of art.
Yep.
Uh, but again, that's for me, I'm focused on like, is it an attempt to create some experience for an audience member
Mhm.
uh, that that will have some impact on them? That's
Mhm.
to me the difference between doodling versus making art. Is doodling is something I'm doing with no intent to like share it or have any other person experience it. I mean, they theoretically could or whatever, but that's not the intent behind it. I'm just doing it to entertain myself or fidget or
Mhm.
whatever I'm doing. Same with like, I wouldn't call journaling art because that's
Mhm.
not done with the intent to impact other audience members, other viewers who
Mhm.
experience it. Even though it could be that later on, I go back and take parts from my journal and share it with people as part of my art, or
Mhm.
posthumously, Anne Frank's diary, right? We would all consider art, um,
Mhm.
even though that wasn't.
Would you consider it art?
I would, but I also wouldn't say that Anne
She was
Frank was
intending
creating
it.
it for that
Yeah.
reason. But other people at certain points made the decision to use that material and share it with a public audience for the
Okay.
impact.
With and clearly for an intended effect. Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
again, I don't want to get super hung up on like what technically counts as art and what doesn't,
Yeah.
because people get over focused on that. And it's one of those things that I don't think can be like completely 100% categorized with no like edge cases or whatever. So
Yeah.
I don't know how useful it is to try and get into like, does this count or not? Doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
So when you're
Next
asking about
step.
creative process, I interpret that as that what you're asking about is what I would call an artistic process, meaning what is the process that an artist uses in creating their art.
Mhm. Correct.
Uh, I think it's very important before talking about, because yes, I have ways of like breaking it down, and I've worked with many artists, including even in like group settings to try and support people in this. We do a lot of that kind of work. I love it. Before getting into all the steps, the one I always want to point out first is that the final step in the artistic process is the art being experienced by an audience.
Mhm.
The process is not done until that has happened.
Mhm.
One moment. Because I had to move at the last moment, I'm now like locked into our room, and my wife needs to come and get some things.
Susan could make an appearance.
One moment. I'm just unlocking the door so that she can pop in and grab some things. Sorry about that.
No worries at all. We're all good. I speak for everyone that I've never met in the comments section as well as myself.
So that doesn't mean that it's not art until you've shared it with someone. It just means that the process isn't complete until it's been shared with someone.
Mhm.
Um,
So it could still be considered art before being shared with an audience to communicate like an intended effect or whatever, but that you think the artistic process is not complete until the art has been shared with the audience.
yeah.
Is
In
that
fact,
accurate?
yes. In fact, the way
Okay.
that I break it down when I'm trying to help people, there are multiple steps of sharing it with audience before it's like the final, completed process.
Mhm.
We can talk about that.
Mhm.
I think it's helpful to note that like all things art contain the process of creating art has we can break everything down into 2 categories. One is ideation, the other is execution. And we can break that stuff down further though. But coming up with the ideas effectively and then turning those ideas into reality. That by reality, what I mean is turning it into something that the audience can experience, right? When it's in
Mhm.
your mind, the audience can experience that. uh, that I think covers a lot of like when people are um, like famously, I don't know, 5, 6 years ago, there was a piece of modern visual art that was a banana duct taped to a wall.
Mhm.
And I forget what the name of the piece was, but the piece sold for something like several
Mhm.
$1 million. And obviously, the banana, like it's a banana, it rots, right? So that
Mhm.
piece doesn't exist. But what they were selling was the right to replicate that piece, that somebody could, you know,
Mm.
duct tape a banana to a wall and call it that thing and say that it is that piece of art.
Mhm.
Uh, I know that especially like a lot of modern art, visual, postmodern art, and whatever.
I think it was
Uh,
called Comedian. I'm looking it up.
no, maybe that doesn't sound right.
It doesn't sound
Uh,
right to me either.
anyway,
Yeah,
people will often
entitled
use
Comedian. Wow.
really
By Italian
the
artist Maurizio Catalan.
I thought it was the something, but I guess not.
Interesting.
Um, yeah, people will often be like, I could do that, right?
Mhm.
Uh, that's part, I think, of what
Mhm.
happens. We're confusing art and artistry, right? That yes, duct taping a
Mhm.
banana to the wall does not take any mastery of any skill, but coming up with the idea, including even potentially like the way that it is proposed or marketed or
Mhm.
explained to people, is
Mhm.
part of the artistic process in and of itself. And yeah, side note, like I am not at all an expert in this, but from my understanding, the art world is like famously a place for money laundering, and that's part of why there's so many like absurdly inflated prices for pieces of art. Is that people who have made a lot of money illegally will buy art and sell art as a way of like then having legitimized their money. But I don't know how much that impacts things. Ideation and execution.
So
On
you
the
were saying
execution,
that ideation and execution are like the two main ways to conceptualize the artistic process.
not the main ways, but we can break all whatever other steps you want to like break things down into.
Mhm.
There's some of them are about what like coming up with the idea, and some of them are about turning that idea into something that can be experienced by other people.
Okay, so like the two main parts of the process, parts, is that a word you would use? Or like
I You could say it
building
that way.
blocks?
um, I would say probably phases.
Phases.
uh,
Okay. Does that mean ideation always comes before execution? Because I was picturing like ideation, execution, like going in
so
be
yeah, uh, there's cycles of
yeah,
ideation execution, and that's part of what we want to talk about as
yeah.
a general rule, not just with art but with anything. As a general rule, what we find to be most enjoyable, most desirable, for many reasons, including that it is most likely to lead to the best outcomes, are very tight ideation execution cycles. But we'll get
Mhm.
to that hopefully if we have time. Uh, oh, we're all
And does
good.
tight
So JCVIM LOL. I don't know what that JCVIM LOL. I know LOL means. Also, art collectors have an excessive amount of money, and if you can tape a banana to a wall and get rich people to throw money at you, power to you, I guess. Uh, a lot of this conversation got involved in the NFT thing a few years back too, where people were talking about, what is art? Is it the artifact itself, the piece itself? Is it blah blah blah? Anyway, that's in order to create art the way that we're talking about. You have to have a creative idea. You have to come up with a new idea. Generally, we would not consider someone who is replicating something that already exists. We would not generally in our culture call that art, even though, again, we might say that it's, they have an artistry, they have a skill that they have
Mhm.
mastered or whatever to be able to do that. We would not generally consider that art, which also opens up interesting conversations about like, what if the person who's replicating the art actually does a more skillful job at it?
Mm. Mhm. Would you say,
Uh,
oh, what's the comment?
that's my next Bard idea, an artist whose main goal is to get rich people's money. Well, that's pretty much anyone who's attempting to be a professional artist, that's their goal, whether they understand it or not. Oh, that's the code for the emote. It must just not have shown up. Ah, I see.
Oh, okay, the JC thing. Yeah.
When we were talking
So,
earlier
Brandon,
about
I have a question for you about your last point. So, if a person made a piece of art that they thought was original because they thought of it and they didn't realize it was a replica of something or looked a lot like an already existing piece of art, or are you talking about like if someone were to try to paint Van Gogh's Starry Night like better than Van Gogh painted it? Or are you talking about like the artist themselves is consciously replicating something that already exists, like they are aware?
So in the world of art, so that ideation execution thing that
Mhm.
applies to everything that we do. We have to have the idea, and everything that we do intentionally. We do most of what we do doesn't involve any conscious thought or intention,
Yeah.
even though it serves a purpose or whatever. But anything that we have conscious thought and intention to do, we have to have the thought and we have to execute the thought. When talking about art, we can call that, instead of ideation and execution, we can call that creation or creativity for the ideation part and craft for the execution part. That was mentioned earlier, the idea that art and craft are two different things. That's the way I find it most useful to discuss, is that craft is the part where you're creating something that other people can experience. So like craftsmen, for example, can have a lot of skill, artistry, right, at creating something beautiful. But if they're creating the same, like if they're following a pattern or creating what someone has asked them to create, regardless of the skill involved, we generally don't put that in the same category as like creative art.
Okay, that makes sense.
All that craftsmanship.
Yeah.
Because skill, we could say skill is involved in both. Skill is involved in the coming up with the ideas, and skill is also involved with the execution of the ideas. So when people are talking about creativity, and that's part of why I want to be clear about what we're discussing at the beginning, define terms at the beginning, it's because when people are talking about a creative process, they tend to be talking about just the ideation part. Like, how do you come up with a good idea? And that is where many, many, many artists get stuck, is in the ideation part. And then so much of like when an artist is stuck or struggling and they're looking for advice or they're looking for technique or support or tips or whatever, so much of what's offered to them is that like, here's how to ideate better or how to move forward in your ideation, which is great and wonderful. But I think doesn't always address the problem, because a lot of the time the problem is in bridging the gap from ideation into execution. Not just coming up with good ideas, but making it so that an audience can experience them. So on the ideation side, we can break that down. I would say that the first step in that is, I often like to call it consumption. But people who are familiar with the
right now you're saying the first step in your the way you talk about the artistic process is consumption.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Yeah, you have to consume, and that doesn't just mean consume art, although. So what I'm trying to do first is talk about what I think the process is, not necessarily as in like advice on how a person should go about it. We just talk about what the creative process is, and then we can look at each step and be like, if you're struggling on this step, here's something you can do, right?
Okay. Yeah. Are you going to mention artist dates in the artist way?
Yeah, so the artist way is a fairly popular, as far as I know, it's like the most popular like artistic process kind of.
I think so. Yeah, the most popular. Yeah.
A lot of artists are familiar with it, and going on artist dates, or more generally the concept of filling your artists well, I would say falls under what I call consumption.
Yeah.
In other words, like whatever you're going to end up doing, the purpose of it is to impact people, not for the form itself, but for the impact that it will have on an audience.
Mm-hmm.
In order to have any desire or idea of like what to impact people, you have to be a part of the world. You have to like have experiences as a human and take in information. So we can break that down in a bunch of different ways. I will say one thing specifically is that if you want to make art, you should be consuming the shit. I mean, excuse me. You should be consuming oodles and oodles of the kind of art that you want to be making.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to be a musician, you should be listening to music all the time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's like the Save the Cat book for screenwriting. Yeah. Yeah, not quite as specific. Yeah, I swear I slipped. Not quite as specific as Save the Cat. So Save the Cat, do you know that book, Caitlin?
No.
Save the Cat is a book written by a screenwriter, and specifically is describing like the format of a good screenplay. So
Okay.
it's often read by people as advice on like how to write a screenplay, but it's not setting out to tell people how to write a screenplay. It's talking about
Yeah, it's not like helping people through the artistic process of it. It's more of telling them how a screenplay could be structured.
Yeah, like the final product of a successful screenplay is going to follow these rules. It's going to look in this way.
Yeah.
And there's all kinds of little sayings for different parts of it, but Save the Cat is one of those. You know, there's a Save the Cat moment.
Oh, cool.
And I can't remember details. I've never read the book, but I'm familiar with some of it. But there's stuff like that there should be some kind of action every like 15 pages or something like that. It lists out like all scripts are effectively one of, and then it's like, I think 4 or 5 basic plot lines. Anyway, where Artist's Way is not specific to the art form, but more just like, if you are an artist, here's advice on how to like be more productive as an artist.
Mm-hmm. I thought Artist's Way was like a combination of the attempt to make more impactful art and also the attempt to make more art more consistently, right? Or is it more about consistency versus impact?
Those two things.
Oh, that's very telling. I think of them as functionally separate, but
okay, that's a good. Let's talk about that because
let's talk about it, Brandon Tessers.
Huge part of the problem.
Is
how artists try to evaluate their own art.
Yeah.
Which generally is, if you do that, you're just done. You're stuck.
Oh, right? For context for people watching this stream, I write music. I think maybe that's helpful for people to know.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, and I'm not talking about you specifically, but.
Oh, yeah. But no, it's a big thing.
So, okay, there's art, and then there's the art industry. There are industries that have been built up around any particular. That sounded threatening. What one sounded threatening? I'm curious. I don't know which comment that was.
Maybe art and the art industry? I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm curious too.
Yeah, let's talk about that, Brandon Tessers. Oh, I think you must have said that to me and emphasized talk in a somewhat threatening way.
I would very much like to direct the conversation that way, but my intention is not to be threatening.
Okay. So it is, of course, a natural thing so art is not made for the purpose of making money. Like humans have made art since well before there was even a concept of money. We have art on cave walls from.
And you would say those cavemen or cave people or whatever are people who were attempting to communicate and have a specific impact through the drawings they put on the cave, right?
I will clarify, it's not always necessarily a specific impact that people are thinking about.
Okay.
So there's kind of an intrinsic link between art and legacy, right? That like anything that you leave behind that might impact future generations. I mean, some of that we could think of in terms of like infrastructure or whatever, where it's the existence and use of it that's impacting people. But anything that's like consciously impacting the way they think or feel or what they do intentionally, we could generally talk about that as art.
Mhm.
But regardless, it is fundamentally about communication, which is I mean, not even close. It is the far and away primary survival skill for humans. More
Mhm.
than anything else, communication is the thing that makes humans survive and thrive. We're
Mhm.
highly incentivized to do it. Almost everything about how we are structured in our bodies, in our nervous systems, that's part of our bodies. Our brain is part of our bodies. Everything about our evolution has incentivized us to communicate. Oh, is that a Bright Eyes line? They crawl from the oceans to paint in the caves, but I'm working all weekend. I need to get paid. Is that from a
Oh,
Bright
that's
Eyes song?
so good. I don't recognize what song it's from. That's so good.
Uh, we sing, children dance, children
Yeah.
paint and draw, and like we we do things that we consider art. It
Mhm.
is a Bright Eyes. Um, just intrinsically. It's intrinsically
Mhm.
enjoyable. We do it because it's enjoyable. Or you could say that it is enjoyable, like anything. We've evolved to experience joy in response to it because it is intrinsically beneficial, because it is ultimately about communication, the way in which we are expressing ourselves and
Mhm.
impacting other humans.
Mhm.
Uh, this is why, like, meditation often involves chanting, right? That
Mhm.
just the use of the human voice, literally the vibrations that it generates when we use it, is impactful for us in beneficial ways.
It's so funny. My dog, every time I rehearse at home, she will literally not allow me to not be holding her while I'm rehearsing at home. And I'll be singing like operatic high notes that I feel like most dogs would just run out of the room, and she's like just in my arms. It's so cute. So I was thinking of
Uh,
that when you said the vibration thing, because I'm like, the only thing that explains this behavior is she loves being close to my like abdomen while I'm singing so loudly because of the
that or the sounds
vibration.
are unsettling to her, and so she wants to be close to
No,
you
they're
because
not. Yeah, she looks sometimes like she's falling asleep even when I'm singing really high notes. She's like,
when she's cuddling with you, it could be that if she wasn't cuddling with you and you were singing, that would cause her distress. But when cuddled by you, then it's better.
oh,
Uh,
wow, that ruins my whole like
no, doesn't have to
woo-woo
ruin it.
version take of
Both
it, but
things
that's
could
okay.
be true, and they would both make sense together based on the same
Mhm.
underlying things. In the same way
Yeah,
that
yeah,
like, singing a lullaby to a child can help them relax and fall asleep, but singing a song in the next room could keep them more awake. There's different information
yeah.
available.
Mhm.
The context
Mhm.
is different. Anyway,
Mhm.
um, I'll say it this way. Pretty sure that you, me, any of us would be pretty freaked out if we heard you singing opera, but didn't know that you were present and thought we were alone in a house, right? If there was just like ethereal opera going on, and we're like, what the, like, we didn't put that on. It's not coming from a speaker or a person. It'd be creepy
Yeah.
as hell.
Yeah.
It's like having
And
someone,
has been in some horror movies,
yeah.
I think. Yeah.
So, as with all things that are enjoyable, we want to do them. That's what it means that they're enjoyable.
Mhm.
And because of the structure of our culture, and this isn't a complaint, but like,
Mhm.
the way we've set things up in order to be able to scale like this is that people require money to be able. So all people are incentivized to try and make money by doing something that they enjoy doing anyway.
Yeah.
That's part of why so many people want to be professional artists in one way, shape, or form, because art is something that is inherently enjoyable.
Yeah.
Note how many people will say, "Oh, I'm a terrible singer," and they would never sing in front of anybody else, that also love to sing in the shower.
Yeah.
So, because so many people would like to
Yeah.
make money by doing their art, and this again
Mhm.
is true of anything that is like universally or nigh universally enjoyable for people to do,
Yeah.
because of how our economic system works and supply and demand effectively, the more people that would like to do it, the more competition there is, the
Yep.
more supply, the less demand. So there's less money in it.
Mhm.
Um, you get in all those details. The
There's
point of
something
that,
there about like the more enjoyable things you make the least amount or whatever. I don't know. Not for everything all the time, but there's something there that I think is kind of I don't know.
So
Interesting.
we could, and I think it's totally valid and actually maybe even really important for those who are trying to be professional artists. Uh, we could identify what is it about art or particular pieces of art that makes them more marketable, makes them more likely to make you money.
Right now, you're saying in the context of people who want to do it professionally.
I'm saying that we could theoretically do that, and it might even be something that's important to do if you're someone who wants to try and make money off of your art.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, understandably, because we simplify things, that has led to people thinking that there is not thinking, rather than talking about whether art is more marketable or more likely to be, earn money or whatever, we talk
Mm-hmm.
about it instead with the shorthand of art being good or bad. That's
Oh.
why people will not want to sing in front of others because they're a bad singer, but will sing in the shower, regardless
Mhm.
of whether you hit the notes properly or stay in key, which is not like there are different keys. I know people don't generally know this, but like there are different scales, different keys,
Mhm.
different things are considered to be harmonious or discordant in different
Mhm.
music traditions.
Yeah.
Uh, the pentatonic scale, which is what most people are familiar with,
Mhm.
um, is without knowing it, you learn it. And so you
Mhm.
learn that, like, if someone is singing in the key of C and then they hit a B flat, like, that's not supposed to be there. That sounds wrong
Mhm.
to us unless
Yeah.
it's done in certain specific ways or followed up in a certain way.
Yep.
Those things are not intrinsic, they're learned.
Mhm.
And so if
Mhm.
you want to make money as an artist, then yes, you're going to be competing against a lot of other people, and you want to be able to do things in a way that people are more likely to be willing to pay money for. Does
Yeah.
that mean that it's not enjoyable to sing if you hit notes flat or sharp all the time? No, it still is enjoyable to sing. And
Mhm.
other people might enjoy it too, but because we've lumped it in with this idea of being good or bad, it becomes embarrassing. I'm referencing singing here, not because you're a singer, Caitlin, and I am too, but because this is the best example where people think of it, they talk about it like it is an intrinsic skill. Like some people are born with the ability to sing and some people are not. They have a bad
Mhm.
ear or whatever. And it is not like anything else. It's something that you can develop and learn. It's you generate your voice by using muscles just like you use your muscles to
Mhm.
drive your car or shoot a basketball or anything else. But part of what gets in people's way is that in order to produce the kind of singing that we think of as good singing, you have to be loud. Not all the time, obviously, there are ways to be quiet, but to be able to go through the full range of whatever, you have to be loud and you have to be full voiced. And what often will happen is people are a little embarrassed about their singing, so
Mhm.
they kind of pull back on stuff, which makes their voice break and crack, or makes them
Mhm.
you hit the wrong note or whatever.
Mhm.
And so it's very psychological to start trying to learn singing, that you have to get yourself to be willing to like put something forward full voice,
Yep.
even if you're worried it might sound bad.
Yep.
That is the number one impediment, is that people tighten up and hold it back, and it literally makes the voice crack. So anyway, when
There's
people are talking,
so much that you could wax poetic off of that, and like, there's so much
I
material
agree.
there.
When people are talking about
And
good and
I'm gonna say one more thing about it, and also the power of people like self-regulating by singing, and if there were less cultural components built around like fear, then I feel like there could be a lot more regulated people too.
I would go so far as to say that with rare exception, everybody does vocal stimming.
Mhm. Oh yeah.
That all
Yeah.
people use the voice box, again, exceptions, but rare exceptions. People use the voice box and generating vibration with the voice box in order to regulate their own emotions.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, Wait, is that it? Is that why people say I'm good at singing, because I don't care enough to be self conscious? Yeah, if you're singing unself consciously, then you are a better singer. And I'm going to circle back to what we mean by better there. Then you are
Yeah.
a better singer than like 95% of people in our culture.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, yeah, it really, like,
That's one of the cool things about training as an opera singer is you learn how to sing on like essentially to be the loudest a human being could possibly be. And there's something so much fun about generating a sound that is so loud. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Woo!
Um, Agreed. There's a reason that like certain musical genres use screams as like the
Mhm.
only vocalizations.
Mhm.
I get so annoyed that no one will sing with me because they're quote not good at singing end quote. I don't care if you're good. We're listening to a great song. I want to sing. Agreed. It's
Maybe you could say to the person then like, "Hey, can you try to sing as loud as me just for like 2 seconds and see if you can get people to like
you can try that,
come
but
out
as
of
soon
it?"
as you call attention to it, they're less
It's
likely.
yeah, they're less likely.
Like my youngest loves to sing, and I love listening to him sing. He's 4. He's got such a sweet, cute voice. But he says that he does not like to sing, and if you look at him while he's singing, he will stop. If you ever mention that he's singing, he'll be like, "No, I don't sing."
Oh my gosh,
Uh,
we need to help him. Actually, I trust you will help him over time.
all right. So
Oh, that's so cute. We have to wrap up soon too, the stream. This is your timekeeper reminder.
yeah.
Caitlin.
So when people are talking about good or bad in terms of skill or art or whatever related to art, that's a shorthand for being more or less likely to make money off of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't think of it that way. We think it's an intrinsic thing, that there is just such a thing as good singing and bad singing. But good and bad are not intrinsic. They are useful concepts as a way to simplify or generalize something more specific about why we like something or don't like something. Karaoke is not about sounding good, it's about sounding terrible together. Yeah, I honestly think that's a big part of what people love about sporting events. Like if you were watching World Cup stuff,
Yeah.
the whole stadiums will sing together and shout together.
Mm-hmm.
So we went on this, I'm not going to call it a tangent, but we weren't like going from beginning to end because you were talking about evaluating art. The problem where artists will get stuck all the time is that they try to evaluate for good or bad art themselves, which is just not possible because there is no intrinsic quality that makes art good or bad. Literally anything that you could say about any piece of art as like, this is bad and that is good, we can find examples of people who have been successful and made a lot of money while doing the thing that you're saying is bad. And failing to do the thing that you're saying is good. Which means if you're trying this artistic process, when we're talking about this is for people who are trying to be professionals. Because if you're doing this for fun, then it's a whole different thing, and we can talk about what that is.
And would you define professional as like make enough? Would you define professional as make enough money off of it, or just make money off of it?
Period. Doesn't no. It's not about an amount. If you get paid for something, you're a professional at that thing. In other words, you're trying to create art that people will pay money for. Right? Is a different process than creating art for fun. And very importantly, if you're doing it for fun, you don't need a process. That's what my favorite quote, inspiration is for amateurs. The rest of the show can get to work. I know that that's interpreted derogatorily towards amateurs, but I think it's a categorical distinction. That's how I interpret it anyway, is that amateurs can work when they want. It's not your job. You don't have to work when you're not feeling it. So you can let things just happen naturally. You don't need to have a conscious process to go through. You can do that if you want, but that's what this is all designed around. And it can honestly mess with that stuff if you start trying to have a process when you're not trying to make money. Because whether it is good or bad, and when we're talking about this process, what we're saying is whether people are more or less likely to pay money for it is entirely about other people's opinion and experience, not yours. So that's why the process ends with sharing it. And actually, I give people a process to have those tight ideation execution
tighter loops. Yeah.
When you execute, you get more information. And as you get more, that's back to consumption. You've taken in more information that informs what you do on those next steps. So I coach people to have alpha audience and beta audience. The alpha audience is like people who you don't really give a crap about their opinion. You know, like they might not like the kind of stuff that you make anyway. You're a rapper and they hate rap or whatever. They're just people who like you and that you're safe with and you like them, and you can show them what you've worked on every day and they can see it.
So it could be like a partner,
It's-
a close friend, a family member, depending on the person.
Yep.
For alpha
Oftentimes these
audience.
days it can be your subreddit or your Discord community or whatever too.
Mm-hmm.
Beta audience
point.
is when you're sharing it with people who in some way represent the intended target audience of like that would spend money on it. They are people who like the kind of music that you make or like the kinds of books that you write or whatever. And those people you're then, so alpha audience, you're just showing it so that you're getting through the process of sharing it with another person in a completely safe way. And then once you've done that, the alpha audience is the one that signs off on like, yeah, share it with your beta audience, which 99.8% of the time is just them looking at it and being like, cool. And then you share it with beta. Beta audience gives actual feedback, and we can talk about specific ways to structure that feedback that will then you'll incorporate into modifying the work.
Yeah.
Alpha audience sounds like the people who you can just say, some people just have bad tastes too. Yeah, I mean, alpha audience is
and
like,
they love me or whatever.
like my mom, my dad, well, difference. But so my mom is not like an actor or whatever, right? And she would come see me every time I was in a play, and then she would always think it was great. And she'd be like, man, I don't know how you remember all those lines and where to go and stuff, which is what like non-actors think of as being impressive, because I mean, it is, I guess, in a way.
It is in a way. Yeah, correct.
Yeah. It's kind of like saying like, wow, your ship is so cool, it floats on water and moves, you know, like that's
yeah.
the bare
and you're
minimum.
like, this is the bare minimum.
But yeah, no, like I'm happy for my mom to come and see me in a show and to enjoy it, even if she's not like big into the themes and the experience of the show that we did or whatever. It's just, you need, like, art is not for you. You can enjoy the process of creating it. Hopefully you do. Although it's worth noting that if you're trying to do it professionally, that's not the main point. So you want to be able to do it in a way where you're enjoying it and you're successful at it. But you have to recognize that if you're trying to make money off it, that becomes the priority more than whether you enjoy it. That's what people are like, once it becomes your job, then it's your job and you hate it. Because yeah, you sometimes are going to have to do stuff that you don't enjoy because it's your job. I'm not saying that's wonderful. It's just how things are.
Yeah.
That's not just a cultural thing either. There's intrinsic processes.
And so what were you saying about the beta audience? You get like genre specific feedback that you might incorporate into.
Yeah, they're the ones that will give feedback of like, you know, this character didn't pop for me, or like, oh, I loved that bridge, you know, but then the song went on too long afterwards or whatever. And it doesn't
and
mean
they might even like
the way they say.
Oh, keep going. Doesn't mean you change.
It does mean that like they're a small sample that represents the target audience that you're going for. So their opinions are treated as more representative, more likely to be representative of the people who would theoretically be paying money at some point for this. Once the beta audience signs off on like, yeah, this is great, that's when you take it to depending on how you're doing it, but that's when you take it to publishing. And how you publish it can be different, especially these days in the age of social media. It used to very much involve like gatekeeper steps. It doesn't necessarily do anymore now. But publishing, you go through a publishing process, a polishing and publishing process, and then it's out there to the public, however that is. If it's performance art, you know, you're booking dates and selling tickets. And if it's a song, you put it out online or whatever. If at any point in this process, you're trying to evaluate, do I think this is ready? You'll never think that it's ready. No artist will ever be like, yeah, this is great.
I can definitely co-sign that as a phenomenon.
If you do, and it does sometimes happen, if you do, it is very ephemeral. You know, like you might make something and be like, this is amazing, I got to put it out there for people. And then 2 weeks later, you're like, no, I should work on it more. I should, you know. Remember, art is not for you. It's for the audience. So audience is the one that determines whether it's good or bad. Their experience and reactions determine whether it's good or bad. Not anything intrinsic about the art, but the experience that audience has of it. In fact, we don't have time because we got to wrap up, but I would, if I want to be real specific and really delve in deep with people, I actually consider the art to be the word that describes the interaction between the piece and the audience.
Mm-hmm.
There's the audience, there's the piece. Art is the interaction between the two.
Mm-hmm.
It's a
That's
word.
interesting. I tried to intentionally in my second and third more recent performances, I had like a first, a second, and a third. Second and third make a lot more contact with the audience members, like eye contact, and try to like give to them specifically as though like what I was doing was, which it is communication to them, and it felt a lot different, and I got better feedback as well. So that's a good reminder too.
I'll just quickly before we wrap up, I will be clear that there are different metrics for success, right? Not everybody who wants to be a professional actor is trying to make millions and become really famous.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. And there are different techniques and different strategies and different even like genres and things. Like no death metal band is ever going to be a billionaire like Taylor Swift is, but
Taylor Swift is a billionaire now?
I don't know actually. I've heard her described that way. I don't actually know.
Oh, okay. But like, yeah.
No death metal band is going to be a household name, but
Yeah.
there are things within the people who like that genre that they like more and they like less, and there's levels of success to attain. So it's not to say like you have to, because the concept of selling out and all that stuff is big for artists. Yeah, there's different reasons to make art. There's different things you can be trying to accomplish to make art. If you're not trying to make money, you don't need a process. When we're talking about a process, talking about someone trying, it doesn't mean rich and famous, just means trying to make something that people will pay money for. There's another spam, best promotion. And then, well, if a concerted bangle says it's the best promotion, it must be true from Bast Insider. That's the
I love Bast Insider as our like, yes, any random spam comment, Effective Artistry is on board. Thank you so much for your input, Mr. Bot. Like, we appreciate it so much. I love that. It's so funny.
For many reasons, and you want to do it differently depending on what you're trying to accomplish. But
yeah,
if we're talking about a creative process or an artistic process, we're talking about people who are trying to be able to make money, because otherwise just do it when you feel like doing it. If you're not doing it for your money, then like doing it when you don't want to do it does nothing for you. It's not enjoyable.
Yeah.
So what's the point? And I know people get confused and think about like discipline and consistency, and that's a whole other thing about how we conceptualize productivity and personality traits and whatever. We got to go. We can talk more about.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for being with us today.
Live, experience things, consume art. Consumption is just as important as production. All right. Good to be with you all.
Thanks, everybody.